Emily told me she was leaving me while the waitress was setting down my steak. It was my birthday. 52, small suburban steakhouse off the highway, the kind with dim yellow lights, fake wood paneling, and a pianist in the corner playing songs nobody really listened to. Emily had picked it because she said she wanted something quiet. I remember that now because of how precise it sounded. Quiet, controlled, clean. She waited until the waitress smiled, said, "Enjoy your meal," and walked away. Then Emily lifted her wine glass, took a small sip, and looked at me across the table like she was discussing weather. "I'm leaving you, Ryan." I set my fork down. She held my eye for a second, then added, almost casually, "Derek and I reconnected. We've been talking for a while. I'm going to be with him." Her old boyfriend from college. Derek, a name I had not heard in years. She said it so evenly, so politely, that it landed colder than shouting ever could have. No apology, no trembling voice, no guilt, just a decision already made. Around us, plates clinked. Someone at the bar laughed too loudly. The pianist stumbled through an old Sinatra tune. I looked down at the baked potato on my plate, still split open, steam rising from the center. Emily leaned back in her chair. She was wearing a cream blouse I had bought her last Christmas and the gold bracelet Lily gave her years ago. She looked prepared for a scene. I could see in the way she kept her chin slightly raised, waiting for impact. "You're not saying anything," she said. I cut a piece of steak and chewed it before I answered. "You seem to have covered the important parts." Her expression shifted, just slightly. She had expected something else. Anger, questions, maybe humiliation loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Instead, I reached for my water glass. She frowned. "That's it." I dabbed my mouth with the napkin and looked at her. "What exactly were you hoping for, Emily?" That hit harder than if I had raised my voice. For the first time, she looked unsure. Only for a moment, but I saw it. It passed fast, replaced by a brittle little smile. "I just thought you'd have more to say." I nodded once. "I'm sure you did." She looked away then, toward the dark window beside our table, where the glass reflected both of us back like strangers having dinner for the first time. I kept my face calm. Inside, something old and heavy settled into place. Because the truth was, shock wasn't what I felt. It was confirmation. When we got home, Emily made a performance out of leaving. She did not go upstairs quietly or close doors with dignity. She wanted noise. She wanted impact. Cabinet doors slammed in the bedroom. Hangers scraped across the closet rod. Her heels clicked hard against the hardwood as she moved from room to room with her phone pressed to her ear, speaking just loud enough for me to hear pieces of it. "No," he barely reacted. A pause. "I know. It was weird." Then a laugh, thin and smug. "I think he's in shock." I stood in the kitchen, took off my watch, and set it beside the fruit bowl. The house smelled faintly like lemon polish and the pot roast she had made 2 nights earlier. Ordinary smells. Ordinary walls. She was trying to turn the place into a stage, but the house refused to cooperate. It stayed quiet underneath her drama. She came downstairs dragging a large navy suitcase behind her. "I'll come back for the rest later," she said, watching my face. I nodded. "Make a list." That stopped her for half a second. She shifted the strap on her purse. "That's all you have to say?" I looked at her, really looked at her. Emily had always mistaken silence for weakness. She never understood that some men go quiet when they are breaking. Others go quiet when they are finished. "I don't see much value in repeating you," I said. Her mouth tightened. "You're acting like this doesn't matter." "It matters," I said, "just not in the way you expected." She stared at me, waiting again for the explosion that never came. Then she gave me one last cold smile, lifted the handle of the suitcase, and walked out through the front door. I listened to her car start, reverse down the driveway, pause at the curb. Then the engine faded into the dark. The house went still. I waited a full minute before moving. Then I walked to the hall closet, reached to the top shelf, and took down the small black lockbox I had not opened in 3 years. The key was still taped beneath the bottom lip, exactly where I had left it. Inside were folders, a flash drive, 2 notarized copies, and a yellow legal pad with my handwriting across the front, in case Emily ever leaves first. I carried the lockbox into my office and closed the door behind me. The room looked the same as it always had, dark with desk, 2 monitors, a framed photo of Lily at 12, missing her front tooth and laughing into the sun. Emily used to joke that I spent more time in here than anywhere else in the house. She wasn't wrong. I sat down, set the box in front of me, and opened it slowly. No rush, no hesitation, just sequence. The flash drive went into my laptop first. A folder opened automatically. Structures. I leaned back slightly, letting my eyes move across the screen. Subfolders. Dates. Documents. Clean. Organized. Quiet. For years, Emily thought our life was simple. Joint accounts. Shared income. A house in both our names. My consulting business as our future. She liked saying that. Our future. But Emily never read anything she signed. Not the updated operating agreement 5 years ago. Not the asset protection trust my attorney insisted on after the second expansion. Not the revised deed structure when we refinanced during that low-rate window she barely remembered. I opened the first document. The house. Technically, yes. Both our names have been on it once. That changed when we transferred ownership into a holding entity tied to a trust. My trust, fully compliant, fully legal, fully invisible to anyone who didn't care to look closely. Emily had signed the paperwork at the kitchen island while scrolling through her phone. "Just tell me where to sign," she had said. I did. Next file, primary accounts. What she believed were joint accounts had been reclassified years ago. Access permissions adjusted. Ownership separated. She still had visibility. Cards. Convenience. Not control. Never control. Next, business income. Layered. Distributed. Routed through entities she had never asked about because the checks always cleared and the lifestyle never changed. I paused for a moment, remembering conversation from years back. "Ryan, I don't want to deal with all that complicated stuff," she had said, waving a hand dismissively. "That's your thing." It was, and I had treated it like mine alone. I opened the final folder. Trigger events. There it was, a clause buried in language most people skim past. Voluntary separation. Abandonment of residence. Financial disentanglement protocols. Activation conditions were simple. One party leaves. Without contest. Without immediate legal filing. Without notice. I checked my watch. Emily had been gone 37 minutes. I picked up my phone and made the first call. "David," I said when he answered. "It's time." There was no surprise in his voice. "Understood. You want everything initiated tonight." "Yes." A pause. Then, "She finally did it?" I looked at the open files, the signatures, the years of quiet preparation. "Yes," I said calmly. She made it official. I ended the call and sat there for a moment, listening to the silence of the house. Emily thought she had just walked out of a marriage. What she actually did was activate it. I woke up before sunrise. The house felt different. Not emptier, just settled, like something unresolved had finally chosen a direction. I made coffee, black, no sugar, and stood by the kitchen window while the sky turned from gray to pale blue. At 6:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Not a call, not a message, a notification. Emily had posted something. I stared at the screen for a second before opening it. She had never been subtle. But this was something else entirely. A photo, bright colors, sunlight, a Ferris wheel in the background, cotton candy stands, county fair, and in the center, Emily, smiling. Not the polite smile she used at dinners or with neighbors. A full, open smile. Relaxed, certain. Next to her stood Derek, his arm around her waist, her head tilted slightly toward him, like they had already been together for a while. The caption was short. Some things just come back when they're meant to red heart. I didn't react immediately. Instead, I tapped the photo and zoomed in. Details matter. Her dress, light blue, sleeveless. I had seen it before. 3 weeks ago, at a friend's barbecue. She said she was meeting some old girlfriends later that night. Derek's shirt, rolled sleeves, watch on his left wrist. Casual, practiced. Their posture, no hesitation. No awkward distance. This wasn't two people reconnecting. This was two people continuing. I checked the timestamp. Posted 10 minutes ago. Taken yesterday afternoon. Yesterday. I leaned back slowly in my chair, coffee untouched beside me. Yesterday afternoon, Emily had been texting me from work. Short replies. Delayed responses. Complaints about meetings. I open our message thread. 2:14 p.m. Still stuck in this review. Probably late tonight. The photo timestamp read 2:26 p.m. Same time, different reality. I set the phone down carefully and walked back to my office. The laptop was still open from the night before. Files waiting. Systems already moving. But this changed the tone. Because until that moment, everything could still be framed as emotional, impulsive, a bad decision made quickly. That narrative had value. It created sympathy, leverage, room for negotiation. But this photo erased all of that. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't confusion. This was planned, documented, and now public. I saved the image, downloaded the metadata, took screenshots of the post, the caption, the time. Then I opened a new folder, premeditation. For the first time since the dinner, I allowed myself a small pause. Not anger, not satisfaction, just clarity sharpening into something precise. Emily thought she had announced a new beginning. What she actually did was timestamp a lie. Emily moved fast, faster than I expected. By noon, I had an email from her. Short, clean, written like it had already been reviewed by someone else. Ryan, I retained legal counsel. All future communication should go through my attorney. Below it was a name, Jason Keller. I recognized the type immediately. Young, polished, the kind of lawyer who wore confidence like a tailored suit and believed most cases were won by pressure, not patience. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the email to David. His reply came back within 3 minutes. Send him Packet A. I opened the folder. Packet A wasn't dramatic. No threats. No emotional language. Just documents. Clean, indexed, impossible to misinterpret. I attached everything and sent it over. No message beyond. As requested. An hour later, my phone rang. David. He called me, he said without preamble. And a pause, then a quiet shift in his tone. He thought this was a standard division case. Joint assets. Emotional breakdown. Maybe push for settlement. I leaned back in my chair. And now, another pause. Now he's reading. I could picture it. Jason Keller sitting in a glass office, sleeves rolled, confidence still intact as he opened the first document, then the second, then the third, ownership structures, trust documentation, signed acknowledgments, time-stamped revisions, Emily's signature, again and again, on pages she had never truly seen. What did he say? I asked. David exhaled lightly. His exact words were, "This complicates things." Of course it did, because this wasn't a fight over splitting something in half. There was no clean middle, no shared pool to divide. There was only structure, and Emily was not inside it. She's already assuming she gets half, David added. I almost smiled. She's been assuming a lot of things. Another brief silence. Then David said quieter now, "Ryan, he also saw the premeditation file." I glanced at the folder still open on my screen. The photo, the timestamp, the message logs, everything aligned. And he asked if we intend to use it. I didn't answer immediately. I let the question sit for a moment, like everything else. Measured, controlled. Then I said, "Only if necessary." David understood. We ended the call. I sat there, hands resting lightly on the desk, looking at the email Emily had sent that morning. She thought hiring a lawyer shifted power. She thought escalation would force movement, pressure, fear, concessions. But what she didn't understand was that her lawyer had just stepped into something she didn't even recognize. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a structure she had already signed. And the moment Jason Keller finished reading, he knew exactly what his client had done. She hadn't just left a marriage. She had walked into a case, already built against her. Emily didn't call me. She went to the bank instead. I found out because David called again, this time later in the afternoon. She just tried to withdraw from one of the accounts, he said. I didn't ask which one. I already knew. Primary joint checking. The one she used for everything. Groceries, shopping, lunches with friends. The account she believed was still ours. And I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. They declined her. I stood up slowly and walked to the window. The street outside was quiet. A delivery truck idled 2 houses down. Normal life. Continuing without interruption. What exactly did they tell her? I asked. They told her the account permissions changed. That her name is no longer attached. I nodded once, even though he couldn't see it. That would have been the moment, not the dinner, not the argument she never got, not even the lawyer losing confidence. This, standing at a counter, card in hand, expecting access, and being told calmly, professionally, that she didn't have it. She argued. David continued, asked for a manager, said there had to be a mistake. Of course she did. They pulled the documents. I closed my eyes briefly. I could picture it perfectly. A quiet office, neutral walls, a manager sitting across from her, sliding papers across the desk, her signature at the bottom, dates from years ago, language she never read. She signed all of it, David said. Every adjustment, every reclassification. I exhaled slowly, and now she knows. Yes. Silence settled on the line for a moment. Then he added, Ryan, this is the first time she's actually feeling it. Not the idea of losing. The reality of it. Access gone. Control gone. Assumptions collapsing in real time. She asked if this was temporary. David said. I almost smiled. And what did they tell her? The truth. That it wasn't. I thanked him and ended the call. A minute later, my phone lit up. Emily. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I answered. Her voice was different. No performance. No control. What did you do? She asked. I leaned against the edge of my desk. I didn't do anything today. That account. She started, then stopped herself, trying to steady her voice. They said I'm not on it anymore. They're correct. A pause. Breathing on the other end. Faster now. That's not possible. We've used that account for years. You had access, I said calmly. That's not the same thing as ownership. Silence. Heavy. Processing. You're bluffing, she said finally, but there was something missing now. Confidence. Certainty. No, I said, I'm not. Another pause. Longer this time. And then, for the first time since the dinner, I heard it. Not anger. Not arrogance. Fear. This isn't funny, Ryan. I'm not trying to be funny. Her voice dropped lower. You need to fix this. I looked out the window again, watching the truck pull away. No, I said quietly. I don't. The line went silent, and for the first time, Emily realized this wasn't a reaction. It was a system, and it had already moved without her. By evening, Emily had stopped calling me. That didn't mean she was calm. It meant she had redirected. I found out where she went without asking. Not from her. From a notification buried in a report David forwarded an hour later. Address change attempt. Temporary residence. Downtown. Derek. Of course. I pictured it easily. The kind of place Derek would choose. High ceilings. Exposed brick. Industrial lighting. The illusion of something new. Something different. Something that felt like escape. Emily always liked symbols. She needed the setting to match the story she told herself. New man, new life, new beginning. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened another file. Not financial, not legal, operational. There are things people don't notice when they live inside comfort. Systems that run quietly in the background. Ownership layers. Management contracts. Service agreements that look like paperwork but act like levers. 3 years ago, my firm expanded into property management, not publicly, not under my name, through a network, holding companies, partnerships, indirect control. I scrolled through the portfolio list, buildings, units, contracts. Then I found it, the address David had sent. I clicked. There it was. The building Derek lived in wasn't his. It wasn't even owned by the company listed on the front door. 2 layers up, buried under a parent entity, was a structure tied directly into one of my firm's acquisitions. I leaned back slowly, not surprised, just precise, because this wasn't luck. It was proximity. People like Derek didn't build. They rented the image of success from people like me. I picked up the phone and made one call. "Mark," I said when he answered. "Yeah, I need a lease review on one of your downtown properties." A pause. "Then unit?" I gave him the address. Another pause. Longer this time. "Tenant issue?" he asked. "Not yet," I said, "but there will be." He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. "What are you looking for?" he said. "Compliance," I answered. That word meant everything. Noise violations, unauthorized occupants, subletting clauses, lease terms people sign without reading, patterns, triggers. He exhaled lightly. "Understood. I'll take a look tonight." Discreetly, always. I ended the call and set the phone down. Across the city, Emily was probably standing in Derek's loft, looking out over the skyline, telling herself she had finally stepped into something better, something free, something hers. But she didn't understand the structure she had just stepped into, because the building she thought represented her future was already part of my past. And if she stayed there long enough, it wouldn't feel like freedom. It would feel like pressure, the kind that doesn't shout, the kind that tightens quietly, until there's nowhere left to stand. Lily called me that night. She didn't start with hi. She didn't ask how I was. Her voice came through tight, controlled, but shaking underneath. "What did you do to Mom?" I was sitting in my office, lights off, only the desk lamp on. The same position I had been in most of the evening. "I didn't do anything to your mother," I said. "That's not what she said." Lily snapped. "She told me you locked her out of everything. Her accounts, the house. She said you're trying to ruin her." I let the silence sit for a second, not to be dramatic, to let her hear her own words. "Is that what you think I'm doing?" I asked. There was a pause. I think you're going too far," she said, softer now. "Whatever happened, this is still Mom." I looked at the photo on my desk again. Lily at 12, laughing, before she learned how complicated people could be. "I'm going to tell you something," I said, "and then you can decide what you think." Another pause. "Okay." "Go into the study," I said. "Top shelf of the cabinet on the left. There's a gray binder labeled Archive." She hesitated. "Why?" "Because I want you to see something yourself. Not hear it from me. Not hear it from her." A longer pause. Then I heard movement. A door opening. Footsteps. "Okay, I see it. Take it out." Paper shifting. Now open to the section marked Correspondence. Silence stretched as she flipped through pages. Then, "What is this?" Her voice had changed. "Emails. Printouts. Dates. Names. Derek. Not recent. Not sudden. Months. Conversations layered under the surface of what looked like a normal life. I didn't say anything because I didn't need to. I said quietly. I was waiting to see what she would choose. More pages turning. Faster now. "Wait, this goes back." She stopped mid-sentence. "Yes." Another silence. Heavier this time. Then she spoke again, slower. There's stuff in here about legal documents." "Keep going." She flipped further. Highlighted sections. Notes in the margins. Revisions. Plans. Not mine. Emily's. "I don't understand," Lily said. "She did," I replied. "At least enough to try." More silence. Then a sharp inhale. "Oh my God!" I didn't ask what she found. I already knew. A draft email. Never sent, but saved. Emily outlining a strategy. How to revisit certain agreements. How to push for updates. How to secure a more balanced position without raising suspicion. Not a mistake. Not confusion. A plan that never fully worked. Until she chose a different exit. Dad. Lily's voice was quieter now. Unsteady. She was planning this? She was planning something, I said, just not very carefully. The line stayed quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, the anger was gone, replaced with something else. Distance. I need to call her, she said. You should. Another pause. Then, softer, I'm sorry. I didn't respond right away, because apologies don't fix understanding. They follow it. You don't need to be, I said finally. She exhaled slowly. I thought you were just being cold. I looked around the office, the files, the systems, the years of quiet preparation. No, I said, I'm being exact. The call ended a minute later, and somewhere across the city, Emily lost the last person who was still willing to believe her version of the story. Derek called me the next morning. Not Emily. Him. I let it ring longer than I needed to, not for effect, just to understand the shift. Derek had been a name in the background for years, a ghost from Emily's past. Now, he was calling me directly. That meant something had already gone wrong. I answered. Ryan, he said, voice tight but trying to sound controlled. We need to talk. I didn't respond immediately. He filled the silence. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Of course. There hasn't, I said. A pause. Then, sharper, your people contacted the property management company this morning. They're saying I'm in violation of my lease. I leaned back in my chair. Are you? That's not the point, he snapped. They're threatening termination, immediate review, legal action if I don't comply with. He cut himself off, exhaling hard. This is retaliation. No, I said calmly. It's compliance. Silence. Then lower now. Emily said you were difficult. I didn't realize you were like this. I almost smiled. You didn't realize a lot of things. Another pause. Longer. More careful. What exactly do you want? He asked. There it was. The question people ask when they finally understand they're not in control. I don't want anything from you, I said. That's not how this looks. That's because you're looking at it from the wrong angle. He didn't respond. So I continued. You involved yourself in something that was already structured before you showed up. You just didn't see it. His breathing slowed. Thinking now. What does that mean? It means, I said, that every step you've taken over the last few weeks has created exposure. For what? Multiple things. I let that sit for a second. Then I added false representation, interference, access to property under misrepresented circumstances. That's ridiculous, he said quickly, but the edge was gone now. I didn't do anything illegal. You walked into a situation you didn't understand. I said, that's not the same as being safe. Silence again. He was recalculating. Good. And Emily, he asked finally, what happens to her? I looked at the file still open on my screen. The photo, the timestamps, the messages. She made her decisions. I said, same as you. Another long pause. Then, quieter, she told me you two were basically done. I didn't react. She said it had been over for a while. He continued, that you were distant. Checked out. Of course she did. She also told me everything was already separated, he added. That made me stop for a second. Not surprise. Just confirmation. I'm sure she did, I said. His voice dropped lower now. Uneasy. That's not true, is it? No, I said. That word landed harder than anything else I had said, because it wasn't an argument. It was a fact. Another silence. Then I heard it. The shift. Derek wasn't confident anymore. He wasn't the man in the photo at the fair. He was someone realizing, piece by piece, that he had been pulled into something he didn't fully understand. She lied to me, he said quietly. Yes. No comfort. No sympathy. Just truth. And now, he asked. I stood up and walked to the window again. Outside, everything looked normal. It always does. Now, I said, you deal with the position you put yourself in. I ended the call before he could respond. Because Derek had just learned something Emily hadn't yet fully accepted. He wasn't her rescue. He was collateral. And whatever version of a new life they thought they were building was already collapsing under the weight of the truth they ignored. Emily asked to meet 3 days later, not through her lawyer, not through email, a direct message. We need to talk. In person. I gave her a time. Neutral location. A quiet restaurant halfway between downtown and the suburbs. Not the steakhouse. Somewhere smaller. Cleaner. No history attached to it. She arrived 10 minutes early. I saw her through the window before I walked in. No confidence this time. No performance. She was sitting straight, hands folded too tightly on the table, eyes moving every few seconds like she was trying to hold control over something that kept slipping. When I sat down, she didn't smile. "Ryan," she said. I nodded once. "Emily." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she leaned forward. "This has gone too far." Her voice was steady, but only just. "You've made your point," she continued. "The accounts, the house. Derek, whatever you did there, this is enough." I didn't respond. She swallowed, then tried a different angle. "We can still fix this," she said. "We don't have to destroy everything." I watched her carefully. Not the words, the timing, the shift, because this wasn't remorse. This was calculation adjusting under pressure. I brought something. I said. I placed a thin folder on the table and slid it toward her. She hesitated, then opened it. First page. The photo. Her smile at the fair. Derek's arm around her. Her expression flickered. Second page. Timestamps. Metadata. Aligned perfectly with her messages to me. Her lips parted slightly. Third. Printouts of her messages. Dates. Consistency. Pattern. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't confusion. This was sustained. She flipped faster now, then stopped. The last section. Legal summaries. Signed agreements. Ownership structures. Her signatures. Page after page. She stared at them longer than anything else. Because that part, she didn't understand. Not even now. This isn't right, she said finally, but the words lacked force. "It is," I replied. She looked up at me, searching for something, doubt, maybe, hesitation. She found none. "I didn't know what I was signing," she said. "I know." That landed harder than anything else. Her voice dropped. "You set this up." "No," I said calmly. I maintained it. Silence. Heavy. Final. Her shoulders lowered slightly, like something inside her had finally given up resisting reality. "I thought," she started, then stopped. I didn't help her finish, because it didn't matter what she thought. Everything that mattered was already on the table. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. I slid one final document toward her. The settlement. Clean. Precise. Irreversible. "You sign," I said, "and this ends exactly as it stands." She looked down at the paper, then back at me. For a brief second, something honest surfaced. Not anger, not manipulation, regret, but it was too late for that to matter. "You're really not going to give me anything, are you?" she asked. I held her gaze. "You already took what you thought was yours." Silence stretched between us. Then, slowly, she picked up the pen. Her hand hesitated once. Then she signed. No drama. No final speech. Just ink on paper. When she finished, she didn't look at me again. She closed the folder, stood up, and walked out without another word. I stayed seated for a moment. Not to process. Not to feel. Just to confirm. Everything was done. Later that week, the final documents were filed. Accounts remained closed to her. Assets remained exactly where they had always been. Structures held. Emily didn't just lose the house, or the money, or Derek. She lost a version of reality she had built for herself. The one where she was in control. The one where I was predictable. The one where she could leave and still land safely. She never understood the system she was living in, and by the time she saw it clearly, she was already outside of it. I went home that night to a quiet house. No noise, no performance, just stillness. I poured a drink, sat in the same chair, and looked out at the street. Nothing had changed out there. But everything had changed here, and the only thought that stayed with me was simple. She thought she knew me. She never did.